investment. What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. All right, today we're diving into one of the biggest questions I see in the comments every single day, and that is investment. This is the question that keeps people up at night, the one that sparks arguments in forums. Investment, the one that makes people check their currency stash every few weeks just to make sure it's still there. And I get it, if you're holding Iraqi dinar in investment, you're not doing it for pocket change. You're doing it because you believe something bigger could happen. Now, before we go any further, let me say this clearly. This is not financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor, and I'm not giving you any dates or rates. Nothing in this video is a guarantee. This is purely speculative investment based on scenarios, math, and common sense thinking about outcomes. You should always do your own research and make decisions that are right for you and your family. Investment. With that out of the way, let's talk about the dream, becoming a millionaire from Dinar. When most people first hear about the Iraqi dinar, investment. They imagine this overnight transformation. They picture waking up one morning, checking the news, and suddenly their stack of currency is worth life-changing money. Investment, mortgage gone, debt gone, job optional, maybe a new house, maybe helping family, maybe traveling the world. That vision is powerful. Investment, it's what brings most people into this space in the first place. But here's the thing, the outcome depends entirely on one variable, the future exchange rate. Investment. And since nobody knows the exact rate, the real question becomes how much dinar would you need under different possible scenarios to hit that $1 million mark? Investment. Let's slow this down and make it real. Imagine you're holding 1 million Iraqi dinar. That sounds like a lot, right? You're a millionaire in dinar terms already. Investment. But what matters is the conversion to US dollars or your local currency. If the rate were extremely low, that $1 million dinar might only be worth a few $100s. Investment. If the rate were higher, it could be worth thousands. If it were dramatically higher, then yes, it could be life-changing. Now picture someone holding 5 million dinar. Investment. Another person holding 10 million, another holding 25 million or more. Each of these positions leads to very different outcomes depending on where the rate lands. And this is where people start doing back of the napkin math. You'll see comments like, if it goes to $1, I'm set, or if it hits $3, investment. I'm retiring. But those statements skip an important step, calculating what you personally need versus what you hope will happen. Let's say your target is 1 million U, investments in dollars after exchange, not before taxes, not before fees, but roughly that ballpark of net wealth. How do you get there? You reverse the math. Investment. If the rate were hypothetically $1 per dinar, then yes, you'd need about 1 million dinar to become a millionaire. Simple, clean, easy to understand. Investment. That's why so many people gravitate toward that number. It's psychologically satisfying. But what if the rate were lower? Investment. Suddenly you'd need more dinar to reach the same goal. And this is where strategy comes in. Investment. Some people accumulate larger amounts specifically because they want a cushion. They don't want their future depending on a single precise outcome. Investment. They want multiple paths to success. Think of it like this. Imagine you're climbing a mountain, but you don't know exactly where the peak is. Investment. One person packs just enough supplies to reach a specific height. Another person packs extra food, extra water, extra gear. Investment, just in case the climb is longer than expected. Neither person knows the exact conditions ahead, but one has more margin for error. In the dinar world, investment. That margin is the amount you hold. Now here's something interesting that people don't talk about enough. Becoming a millionaire isn't just about hitting a number. Investment. It's about what that number actually does for your life. For some people, $1 million means complete financial freedom. For others, especially in high-cost areas, investment. It might mean comfort but not luxury. And for someone living in a lower-cost region, that same amount could support generations. So when you ask investment, you're really asking two questions at once. What rate might happen and what lifestyle do I want afterward? Because if your goal is simply to eliminate debt, investment, you might not need anywhere near $1 million. If your goal is early retirement, helping family, investing, starting businesses, then your target might be higher. Investment, let's walk through a realistic scenario. Picture someone named Mike. Mike has been collecting dinar for years. Not obsessively, not recklessly, just steadily. Investment. Every few months he adds a little more when he can afford it. Over time, he builds a position that feels meaningful but not risky to his overall finances. Investment. Mike doesn't assume the highest possible outcome. He doesn't assume the lowest either. He just wants to be positioned so that if something significant happens investment. It changes his life. Now picture another person, Sarah. She bought a small amount years ago and never added to it. She treats it like a lottery ticket stored in a drawer. If it hits, great. If not, no big deal. Both approaches exist in this community, and both lead to very different answers to the millionaire question, investment. Because the truth is, there isn't one magic number of dinar that guarantees millionaire status. There's only a range of possibilities based on outcomes. Investment, some people aim for what they call a comfort zone amount, enough that even a modest positive shift would matter. Others aim for a dream scenario amount, investment. Enough that if the highest expectations happened, their lives would completely transform. And then there are people who sit somewhere in the middle, quietly holding investment, not hyping, not panicking, just waiting. Another factor people forget is time. Wealth isn't only about how much money you have, it's about how long it lasts. Investment, $1 million spent quickly disappears. $1 million managed wisely can support you for decades. So even if someone did reach that milestone through Dinar, investment, the real journey would just be beginning. Taxes, planning, investment decisions, lifestyle choices, all of that comes afterward. But we're getting ahead of ourselves, investment. Right now, we're just trying to answer the core question in a grounded way, investment. How much dinar might someone need to hold to realistically aim for millionaire status under different possibilities? And here's where things get interesting. Investment, because the answer changes dramatically depending on which scenario you believe is most plausible. Some people believe in very high potential outcomes, investment. Others expect moderate changes. Others think any movement would be gradual rather than explosive. Each belief leads to a different accumulation strategy, investment, and none of those strategies are guaranteed. What I want you to do as you listen is not compare yourself to someone else's stash. That's a fast track to frustration. Investment instead, think about your own goals, your own comfort level, and your own definition of success. Because for one person, becoming debt-free is the victory. For another, investment, it's retiring early. For another, it's building generational wealth. And here's something Stephen always emphasizes: nobody knows your situation better than you do. Investment. So when people ask, is my amount enough? The honest answer is enough for what outcome? Enough to pay off your house, enough to quit your job, investment, enough to never work again, enough to change your family tree. Those are very different finish lines. In the next part, investment, we're going to start putting actual hypothetical numbers to these scenarios, low, medium, and high possibilities, investment. And you'll see just how dramatically the required dinar amount can shift depending on where things land. Because once you see the math laid out, investment, the whole conversation becomes a lot less emotional and a lot more strategic. But for now, I want you to think about this. If something positive happened tomorrow, investment, not fantasy, not hype, just something meaningful, would your current position change your life in a noticeable way? Or would it just be a nice bonus? Investment. There's no wrong answer, only clarity. Again, quick reminder, this is not financial advice. I'm not giving dates or rates, and none of this is guaranteed. Investment. This is purely speculative math to help you understand how different outcomes affect the amount of dinar needed to reach that millionaire mark. All right, investment. Let's start with what I call the conservative scenario. This is the scenario where the outcome is positive, meaning the currency gains value, but not in some overnight investment, sky-high way. Think of it as a meaningful move that gets attention but doesn't instantly create massive wealth for small holders. Imagine a situation where the rate lands well below $1, not pennies, not fractions of a cent, but also not at parity with major world currencies. Investment, somewhere in that middle ground that says, yes, something significant happened, but it's not the extreme version people dream about. Investment. Under a conservative scenario like that, the amount of dinar required to reach $1 million becomes very large. Why? Because if each dinar is worth less, investment, you need more of them to hit the same total. Picture filling a swimming pool with buckets of water. If your buckets are tiny, you need thousands of trips. Investment. If your buckets are huge, you need far fewer. The rate is the bucket size, your dinar holdings, or how many buckets you carry. So in a lower rate outcome, investment. Becoming a millionaire would likely require tens of millions of dinar, not just a few million. And this is where reality checks come in. Investment, many everyday holders simply don't accumulate that level because they don't want to overextend financially. They treat dinar as a speculative asset. That's not something to bet their entire future on. Now let's move to what I call the moderate scenario. This is the one a lot of long-term holders quietly hope for. investment. Not extreme, not disappointing, just strong enough to be truly life-changing for people who planned ahead. In a moderate scenario, investment, suddenly the math becomes much more favorable. Instead of needing massive quantities of dinar, investment. The required amount drops into a range that many dedicated holders actually possess. This is where you start hearing stories like, if it lands around here, investment, I'm done working, or that would pay off everything and still leave plenty. The difference between conservative and moderate outcomes isn't small, it's exponential. Investment, a shift in rate doesn't increase your wealth in a straight line, it multiplies it. Let's make this concrete with a fictional example. Picture two friends, David and Omar. Investment, they both started buying dinar years ago. David accumulated a very large position because he wanted to prepare for lower rate outcomes. Investment. Omar accumulated a smaller but still meaningful position because he believed even moderate movement would be enough. If the outcome ends up conservative, investment. David might reach his goals while Omar sees a helpful but not life-changing result. If the outcome ends up moderate, both of them could experience major transformation. Investment. And if the outcome were higher than moderate, well, that's where things get wild. But before we go there, let's pause on something important. As becoming a millionaire isn't just about gross numbers. There are real-world factors that affect what you actually walk away with. Fees, taxes, timing, exchange spreads, investment, financial planning, whether you cash out all at once or in stages, whether you reinvest, whether inflation eats away at purchasing power. Investment. Two people could both technically receive $1 million and end up in completely different long-term positions depending on what they do next. Investment, that's why some experienced holders don't aim for the bare minimum needed to hit $1 million. They aim for a buffer. They want margin for real-world friction. Investment. Think of it like planning a road trip. If the destination is 1,000 miles away, you don't bring exactly enough fuel for 1,000 miles. You bring extra for detours. Investment. Traffic, unexpected conditions. Wealth planning works the same way. Now let's talk about the high scenario, the one that dominates most online discussions. Investment. This is the scenario where the rate rises dramatically far beyond conservative or moderate expectations. If something like that happened, investment, the amount of dinar needed to become a millionaire would drop sharply. Suddenly, even smaller holdings could produce very large results. Investment. This is why you sometimes hear stories of people buying just a little and hoping for a massive payoff. They're essentially betting on the highest impact outcome. Investment. But here's the trade-off. The higher the outcome you rely on, the more uncertain your plan becomes. Investment. If someone holds a small amount and only a very high scenario would make them wealthy, they're taking a concentrated risk. If someone holds a larger amount, investment, they create multiple paths to success across different scenarios. Neither approach is right or wrong. It depends on personal risk tolerance. Investment. Let's go back to our swimming pool analogy. One person shows up with a few giant water trucks betting that the hose pressure will be enormous. Investment. Another shows up with many smaller containers prepared for slower flow. Both want to fill the pool. They just prepared differently. Investment. Here's something else that rarely gets said out loud. For many people, the goal isn't actually becoming a millionaire. That word just sounds powerful. Investment. The real goal is freedom, freedom from debt, from paycheck to paycheck stress, from limited choices, and depending on where you live and how you plan to live, investment. That freedom might cost far less than $1 million. Someone in a high-cost major city might need 7 figures just to feel secure. Investment. Someone in a lower cost area could achieve the same lifestyle with a fraction of that. So when you ask, it might be worth also asking, investment, do I actually need $1 million to live the life I want? Because if your true goal is financial peace, not status, your target number could be much lower. Investment, and therefore the required dinar amount could also be lower. Now let's talk psychology for a second. Holding dinar over long periods requires patience. Investment, there are no daily price charts flashing on mainstream financial news. There's no instant gratification. It's a quiet wait and see position. Because of that, investment, people tend to swing between optimism and doubt. One day they imagine incredible outcomes. Another day they wonder if anything will happen at all. Running scenario math helps stabilize those emotions. It turns vague hope into structured possibilities. Instead of asking, will this make me rich? You start asking, investment. If X happens, here's what it means for me. If Y happens, here's plan B. That's empowering. And it also prevents comparison traps because trust me, investment, there will always be someone claiming they hold more than you, bought earlier than you, or know something you don't. investment. Most of that noise doesn't change your personal situation. Your outcome depends on your holdings, your goals, and whatever the future actually brings. Investment. Before we wrap this part, I want you to do a quick mental exercise. Imagine 3 envelopes in front of you labeled conservative, moderate, and high. Investment. Each one contains your future outcome based on different scenarios. You don't know which envelope reality will choose. Now ask yourself, investment, would I be okay opening any of these? If the answer is yes across the board, you're probably positioned in a way that aligns with your comfort level. Investment. If the answer is only yes for the high envelope, you might be relying heavily on one specific outcome. Again, not advice, just perspective. And quick reminder, as always, investment. This is not financial advice. I'm not giving any dates or rates, and nothing we're talking about is guaranteed. This is purely speculative investment, educational discussion to help you think through possibilities. So here's the truth that doesn't get enough attention. Investment. Most people don't actually want to be millionaires. What they really want is relief, freedom, and options. Think about it. If your house were paid off, investment on your car paid off, no credit card debt, money in the bank, and your monthly expenses covered indefinitely, would you care whether your net worth says $750,000 or $1,000? Probably not. But the word millionaire has this emotional weight to it. It feels like a finish line, a badge, proof that you made it. In reality, investment. Lifestyle is what matters. So let's walk through different holding sizes and what they could mean under positive scenarios, not fantasy, not worst case. Investment. Just meaningful outcomes. Picture someone holding a smaller amount of dinar. Maybe they bought a few notes years ago and never added more. Investment. They don't follow updates obsessively. It's just something tucked away in a safe place. If something significant happened, that person might not become a millionaire. Investment, but they could still experience something powerful, elimination of stress. Imagine waking up and realizing your credit cards could be wiped out, medical bills gone. Investment. Student loans gone. Emergency fund fully stocked for millions of people. That alone would change everything. No more juggling payments. No more choosing which bill to pay first. No more constant background anxiety. That's life-changing even if it doesn't make headlines. Now step up to a moderate holder. Investment, someone who accumulated intentionally over time but stayed within their means. Not reckless, not all in, just steady. Under a strong outcome. Investment, this person could potentially pay off major assets. Mortgage gone, vehicles owned outright, maybe money left over for investments, retirement accounts, investment, or starting a small business. Think about the difference between earning income to survive versus earning income to grow. Once your basic needs are covered, investment. Your job becomes optional rather than mandatory. You can choose work that aligns with your interests instead of work that simply pays the bills. Investment. That shift alone can transform quality of life. Now let's step into the larger holder category. Investment. These are people who deliberately built a sizable position because they wanted to cover multiple scenarios. They weren't aiming just to get by. They were aiming for full-scale transformation if something major occurred. Under a high-impact outcome, this group could potentially reach true financial independence. Investment, not just debt-free, but income from assets territory. The ability to live off returns rather than principal. Picture this: instead of spending the windfall. Investment, they structure it so that the money generates ongoing income, dividends, rental properties, conservative investments, businesses, streams that keep flowing. Investment. Now you're not just free from debt, you're free from needing a paycheck at all. That's a completely different level of security. Investment. But here's something Stephen always emphasizes: wealth amplifies who you already are. If you're disciplined before money, you'll likely be disciplined after. Investment. If you're impulsive before money, sudden wealth can disappear shockingly fast. We've all heard stories of lottery winners who were broke again within a few years. Investment. Not because the money wasn't enough, because there was no plan. So even if someone did become a millionaire through Dinar, the real challenge would begin afterward. Investment. Protecting it, growing it, and making it last. Let's talk about family impact for a moment. Many holders aren't doing this just for themselves. Investment. They're thinking about spouses, children, parents, siblings, people they want to help, medical needs, education, housing, stability. Investment. Imagine being the person in your family who can solve problems instead of worrying about them. A parent who can pay for their child's college without loans. Investment. an adult child who can support aging parents with dignity, a sibling who can help another start over after hardship. That kind of ripple effect can span generations. Investment. And this is why some people aim beyond personal comfort. They're not chasing luxury, they're chasing legacy. Investment. Now let's address something that rarely gets discussed openly: emotional adjustment. If someone goes from ordinary financial life to sudden wealth, investment, there can be a strange period of disorientation. Your daily routine change, your social circle may react differently, your priorities shift. Investment, some people feel pressure to spend, others feel fear of losing it. Some withdraw, some overshare. Some become extremely private. Money solves many problems. Investment, but it introduces new ones too. That's why experts often recommend building a team: financial planners, tax professionals, legal advisors. Investment, people who can help structure things intelligently. Again, not advice, just what tends to happen when large sums enter the picture. Investment. Now let's bring this back to the core question. By now you can see that the number itself is only part of the story. Investment. Because if someone becomes a millionaire but immediately spends most of it, their lifestyle might not change long term. Meanwhile, investment, someone who receives less but manages it wisely, could achieve permanent stability. So the better question might be, investment, how much dinar would create the level of change you personally want? Debt-free living, early retirement, business ownership, generational wealth, philanthropy. Investment, security against emergencies, freedom to relocate, time with family. Each of those has a different price tag. Here's a powerful way to think about it. Investment, imagine your ideal day 5 years after a positive outcome. Where are you living? What does your morning look like? Are you working, traveling, spending time with family? Investment, pursuing hobbies, running a company, volunteering. Now reverse engineer the financial requirements for that life. Investment, suddenly the millionaire label becomes less important than the sustainability of that vision. Another factor is inflation and purchasing power. Investment, $1 million today doesn't buy what it did decades ago, and in the future that could change even more. So some people aim higher not out of greed, investment, but out of caution. They want to ensure long-term security even as costs rise. Let's also talk about staged outcomes. Not everyone would exchange everything at once. Investment. Some might convert portions over time, watching how markets react, spreading risk, and adjusting plans as conditions evolve. Investment. That approach could influence how much dinar someone feels they need to hold initially. Think of it like harvesting crops. Investment, you don't necessarily harvest the entire field on the first day. You manage timing to maximize value and reduce loss. Again, just a conceptual example. Investment. Before we close this part, I want you to consider something deeply personal. If nothing changed tomorrow, would you still be okay with your decision to hold? Investment. If the answer is yes, you're likely approaching this from a place of stability rather than desperation. If the answer is no, investment, it might be worth reassessing expectations and financial balance. Investment, because the healthiest position to hold any speculative asset from is one where your present life is secure regardless of outcome. Hope should enhance your future. Investment, not carry your entire emotional well-being.